Good evening, good evening, good evening, family. It is Dr. Té with yet another episode of Late Night Latte. I'm glad to be back next week, and I'm guessing I should turn off my ringer. That's my notification that I'm going live. Um, but I'm so glad to be back. Don't have a latte this evening, but I have a green smoothie. So, if you want the recipe, I won't give it to you because it's not that appetizing. But we are currently waiting for our guest to arrive, and she's just logged on. I'm encouraging all of you to please share. This is going to be an awesome, awesome interview. I'm really looking forward to it, and I know that Brooke has a lot of awesome insight to share about what we're going to be discussing, which will be PTSD and trauma. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring her on. As I'm bringing her on, everyone, please share this to your pages, and we are going to add Brooke. Let's see here. Where are you? Where are you? Come on, technology. Let my sister on. Hey,
Hey.
girl. Hey.
Oh, it's making me turn my phone, rotate my phone. Okay. All right.
Oh, okay. Hey, girl.
Hi.
How are you? It's been forever. How's everything?
I'm doing well. Trying to do well.
I hear you. I hear you. Sometimes it's a process like that. Um, I've already shared it, so I want to make sure folks are sharing. Um, so
Okay.
everyone, those of you who are weekly viewers of Late Night Latte, and those of you who are just tuning in, this is Brooke Lugo Smith, and do not be confused. Lugo Smith is not hyphenated, as she
Hey.
as she informed me. Lugo is her middle name. But
Yeah.
this is Brooke Lugo Smith. This is actually a Facebook sister of mine. We connected through Facebook. Um, have we met in person? Like had the face-to-face interaction?
I actually think one time because you
Mm-hmm.
so graciously supported us with our
Yes.
walk a few years ago, our awareness
Yes.
walk,
Yes. Yes.
and you printed some graphic flyers for fans
Yes.
for our
I was
participants.
like,
Yes,
I feel like we did make that connection.
yes, and that was years ago.
It was. So much
Hmm.
has transpired. But our initial communication was via Facebook, and you'll learn about why at some point during the interview. But I thought that Brooke would be one of the best people to really give a story and a personal testimony related to trauma and PTSD. So you're all wondering, well, what's the story? So we're going to get to that. But before all of that, and I see Michelle Bassett is tuned in. Hi, mommy. Um, tell us
I
who
can't see
Brooke
who's
is.
coming in. Is there a
Yeah,
way
I
that
don't
I
know.
can
That's weird.
see?
They might, if they're your friends, they might pop up, but I'm not sure. Like only my friends pop up on my screen, so maybe your folks will pop up as well
Uh,
on your
the way
side.
that it did
Love your
it
lashes,
made
by the
me
way.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It made it made me turn the phone horizontal, and therefore I don't see anything.
Hmm.
So if anybody is saying anything, I won't be able to see it right now. Let me see what let me turn
Okay,
it.
well, you might be able to swipe. If you swipe, is your orientation lock on?
No.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes
Okay.
Facebook Live does that. I'm not sure why.
No. Okay.
Um, are you
All
okay?
right.
So Charla Gillespie says hi.
Hi,
So definitely.
Charlotte.
So first, tell us who Brooke is.
Who is Brooke? I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I don't know. I don't
So
know.
obviously she's a comedian.
No.
So
I try. Who is Brooke Lugo Smith? Well, first off, I am a wife and a mother. And on that note, a disclaimer, my wonderful toddler Jackson could open this door and interrupt our session and try to steal the show at any moment. So please be aware of that. our viewers. So right now, been good. He's watching Incredibles. So,
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of focused right now. So hopefully it's not
Exactly.
the end. Yeah. A wife and mother. I've spent maybe the past 13 to 18 years doing entertainment as a vocalist for a bunch of major networks and commercials and
Mm-hmm.
movies like Disney, Navy. I've been in pageantry, and more recently, I was named Miss New York Plus America Lifetime. So that is a title that I can carry with me forever now.
Oh,
I have also started a nonprofit with my husband. So I am a co-founder of a wonderful organization. And that's pretty much it. That's me. I like to have fun, very easygoing. It's Brooke.
well, that's a lot. That's a lot of awesome stuff. So, we'll get into the meat of why I asked you to be on this episode. So, July, as you probably know, is Minority Mental Health Month. And each week I've been
Yes.
covering different aspects of mental health. We did anxiety, tried to talk to some professionals who have private practices. And this week I wanted to talk about an area that's really near and dear to my heart, for a number of reasons, and that's trauma and PTSD. Um, but before we get into that, I'm interested in knowing what your thoughts are about Minority Mental Health Month. Like, do you think that, we should have our own month, or should it be lumped in with Mental Health Month in May? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think we totally need a minority mental health month. It is so needed. It's a topic that, um, as much as we've been trying to bring awareness to it, we still need more awareness on it. It's just been
Hmm.
so taboo and unspoken of, and we try. I've seen a lot of efforts over the years. We
Right, right,
definitely try to bring more awareness to it, but for some reason there's just this heavy stigma in our community. And because of that, there's a lot of setbacks. There's a lot of areas that, we haven't been able to move forward in as far as treatment and help, because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants
right,
to deal with it. Nobody wants to treat it like it's real. I mean, mental health alone has its own stigma. And because of that,
mhm,
for some cultural reason, it just it just becomes something that's tucked away, that's not talked about, that's not addressed. We see it all the times in media. I know plenty of times it's brought up where you'll see people of other races, and when it comes to their negative actions or crimes, I should say, when it comes to their
yeah,
crimes,
absolutely,
you'll hear them labeled as having mental health issues. But then when it comes to people of color, um, it's never even brought up. It's just that, they're a
right,
thug or they're violent or they're this. Nobody ever takes into consideration, well, do you know that the reason why they might have these actions are because they're struggling with mental health? We're not taking away from the actions, but do you know that, or why don't the two correspond with each other? Why aren't they
right,
equal? So we don't want to talk about it. And there's a lot of different reasons why. There's the struggle with the church and mental
hmm,
health. There's shame. Me
absolutely,
personally, as a believer and follower of Christ, not perfect, but as a believer and a follower and a practicer, practicer,
hmm,
um, uh, I see, it stems back all the way, all the way, all the way back to, Adam and Eve. You know what I mean? As soon as, sin was introduced, one of the first things that happened is Adam and Eve, they hid and they covered themselves. There was some
hmm,
shame. There was, something, I want to say insecurity, was one of the first things that was, introduced, to this world as far as, sin. And I think that plays a big part into why this is still an issue, because people are
mm,
ashamed of it. They're hiding. You don't want to address it, and it becomes very, very, very difficult. And I know we'll probably talk more about, why and the different cultures that are kind of enabling that type of behavior.
Absolutely. No, I've never thought about it like that, the insecurity and the shame and how it starts from the Garden of Eden. Like wow, that's deep. We have to study that. That was good.
I'm not a
But yeah, I
Bible
mean,
scholar. That's just my little personal revelation.
no, but that's really deep, and I think that speaks to a lot of the issues that we as people of color, we as believers have. We're not speaking to the issues that are really like legitimately issues, because they're so taboo, because people have been shamed and feel ashamed. So that's really important, and of course, I think it's important for us, to have. National Minority Mental Health Month. That's why I'm having this series. So, so I noticed, like I told everyone that we connected on Facebook actually, and I'm not going to tell the story. You can tell it, but in addition to a lot of the things that you mentioned that you're a mom and you're a wife and all of these other things, all of these accolades. One of the things that I noticed that you lead with is the fact that you're an advocate for pregnancy and infant loss. So, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about how you became so passionate about this topic.
Yes. Well, I up until 4 years ago, I had absolutely no clue about pregnancy and infant loss. I've heard about people losing babies, but you never really thought anything past it. It just was like, dang, that's horrible. It's messed up, and
Right.
you don't know what to do. It's just that's it. So loss was not anything that I ever thought I would experience. But after what would be um, a storybook situation, it just took a turn for the left real quick. My husband and I, we met each other in 2009. By 2 months in, my husband proposed to me. We got married on our 1 year anniversary. We started rebuilding our credit and saving money. We bought our home 2 years later. We were on a 5-year plan. Everything was ahead of time. I lost like 100 pounds, and then here I am pregnant with our first child. Everything was absolutely wonderful. And then at my 9th month, I was already due. And, I posted my whole pregnancy online, and I think myself and my whole community was excited for the baby. But unfortunately, I felt like she was moving differently than people were saying that she was supposed to move. And I kept going to the hospital and the doctors on multiple occasions, complaining that she wasn't moving the way that I thought she should. And unfortunately, outside of really looking at her heart rate, they didn't feel the need to look any further. And by the third time that I actually went to the hospital, and the third time that I was actually seen for that week between the hospital and the doctors, there was no heartbeat. That's what they tell you. You go to the doctor, the first thing they do is they do a Doppler test to check for a heartbeat. Then somebody comes back and, okay, check with a sonogram. Okay, somebody else coming in. I'm gonna check with the sonogram. Another person coming in. Once you see a whole bunch of people coming in checking with sonograms, you're like, okay, something is wrong. So yeah, they told us that she was no longer here. It was followed by a bunch of very insensitive comments. I think things that happened that day also contribute to the trauma that I experienced. You don't know what's supposed to happen, so I wanted to know, what was next. We were told, we could go home, and we were like, go home and do what? I gotta, my daughter's inside me. What are we gonna do? Like, how do we get a heartbeat? In my head, I'm in denial. I'm thinking, maybe her heartbeat is just faint and we need to get her out. I'm like, let's have an emergency C-section. And they're like, oh, well, we can't risk your life for a dead fetus. And I'm like, what? Long story short, I had to deliver my daughter stillborn. which means that she stopped breathing inside my womb. And there's a ripple effect of things that happen for people that experience a situation like this, that I think, you know, unless you go through it, you don't know. And I think it's part of the reason why people in my situation are kind of stuck dealing with this in private and alone, because nobody knows what to do. And if we don't talk about it, we don't tell people, then people don't know how to help. You know, for starters, you know, there's a trauma that comes along with the fact that, you know, for some people who do actually go home, some people that are walking around with their child unfortunately deceased in their belly, because, you know, they may want to take some time to figure out what they want to do. So I think you start right there. Most people don't understand that depending on how far along, when you lose your baby, you have to deliver your baby. I don't think people even really understand that miscarriages themselves are a form of delivering a baby. You know, people don't think about the fact that, you know, there's a baby there, the baby has to come out one way or another. You know what I mean? The term you'll hear, oh, bad cramping. It's not cramping. Those are contractions. That's the baby being pushed out, you know, even early on. And people don't understand that, you know, I don't want to get heavily graphic, but, you know, like I said, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of stories that I've heard in addition to mine, you know, people who deliver their babies, you know, miscarriages, their babies coming out in their hands in the toilet, you know. So in my case, you know, I delivered my daughter at the hospital. Like I said, nobody knows what to do. Families work, you know, and that's really hurtful for me when I think about a lot of mothers and fathers, because the body doesn't know. The body doesn't know that you lost your baby. The body knows that you had a baby, which means, you know, for people that think that women should go straight back to work, no, they should be on maternity leave. They still have to go through a postpartum period. You know, I still had, I don't know if I had an episiotomy or if I actually tore. I know they stitched me, but, you know, for those who don't know, when you deliver, sometimes the baby will rip you, or sometimes they may have to cut you a little bit in there because to help the baby come out. So, you know, you're stitched, your body has to heal. Oh, what happened? Somebody said something? I was
reading my smoothie and I'm wearing it now.
Oh, well, that green looks good. I like pink and green, so.
You would.
So,
you would.
Yeah. It's okay. So,
terrible.
So
that was a terrible point for me to do that. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I definitely appreciate the lightheartedness. I need to keep it lighthearted in order to make it through here. You know, you only see me from here up, you know, so you don't see that below, you know, I'm shaking and other things that relate to post-traumatic stress disorder. So keeping it lighthearted, you know, helps me manage and get through moments like this and talking about this topic. Laughter is part of my my regimen, you know.
Okay, so that was all God, so I'm cool with it. I'm cool with
yeah. That was for me. That helped me out. So so as a result, like I said, there's a lot of different things that happen. You know, there's no life insurance for babies, which means, you know, you don't want to leave your baby in a hospital. Well, not to say you don't want, but some people don't want to leave their babies in a hospital. What can you do? You know, you're not prepared to spend a minimum of $1,500, $2,000 for the most basic of basic direct to cremation, you know, or a plot. You know, it costs money, you know, and you're not necessarily prepared for that. You know, you can be pressured to make a decision, you know, or make uninformed decisions. You know, some people on medication during the time, and, you know, even with me, I didn't even I got induced with Kennedy, who's my daughter that passed away. I didn't even take the induction medication, the Pitocin, yet, and they already had a clipboard next to me asking me if I wanted a private burial or a cremation, you know, and I'm like,
Wow.
you know,
Mm.
so there's just so much is a ripple effect, you know. There's a lot of people that mean well but say things that can be triggering, and as a result of all these things, you know, we just kind of led by example. We just saw such a void, and so much help that we needed. We received so much help. Oh my God, if it wasn't for Facebook and
Mhm.
see, that might get me a little emotional. If it wasn't for Facebook and GoFundMe, you know, I don't know that my experience going through this would, you know, be what it was, and as helpful as it was. You know,
Right.
we had a outpour of support, you know, what turned into like me just throwing it out there because, you know, I didn't know what to do. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, we're gonna need help. You know, I don't know. I'm just gonna put it out
Right.
there. Like, can you help? And we actually received like over $15,000, you know,
Wow.
of people that just, you know, poured in support. And that burden just lifted off of our shoulders as far as wondering what to do. It just became easier, you know.
Right.
And you know, if anything can make this easier, then, you know, you want that help. And
Hmm.
you know, it just kind of dawned on my husband. I think I hear Jackson.
Yep.
Let's see. Okay. So you know, so if it wasn't for that overflow of love and support, I don't know what we would have done. I can't imagine it. And I think that's where the nonprofit that my husband and I formed, is called the Baby Resource Center. It was really birthed out of that, you know, what we, how we were helped. And if we just felt like if we could give that same help to people in the same way it was given to us in any form, like even if we, you know, of course we can't give people $15,000 on our own every time, but you know, in any way that we can
Right.
help, you know. And that's how we ended up putting together our organization. You know, we help pay for
Right.
burials, cremations. We do support groups for families. We do workshops for fathers, you know, helping fathers
Right.
deal with the struggles and trials of not only loss, but even learning how to be a good father. You know, my husband
Hmm.
heads up that program, and we offer doula services, free doula services. So if we can provide that support on the front end, you know, there's evidence-based
Right. Right.
material that shows how birth support can help increase the numbers of successful pregnancies and your birth, a positive birth experience. So you know, we want to be proactive also, you know.
Right.
So there's just so much that we try to do. We do an annual walk over the Brooklyn Bridge every year. Our next one is in October of every year, so our next one is coming up. Plug, plug, plug.
Yeah.
And you know, we offer that because it's a time that families can do what they may not feel comfortable doing, or they may not be able to do on an everyday basis, which is something as simple as say the name of their child.
Right.
You know, everybody deals with things differently. So even though I know those who know me, they know, you know, I scream my daughter's name from the mountaintops, you know,
Right.
anytime I feel like it, anytime I want to. I don't care what you say. If I'm talking about it too much, that's my child. And
Right.
as much as
Absolutely.
you or the next person are going to talk about your child every day, I'm talking about my child, no matter how long I had her. So,
Right.
but everybody may not grieve like that. They may not want to, or they may not even be able to handle it. And some people
Right.
may choose to put that pain in a box and tuck it away until whenever they feel like opening it or not. And that's okay
Right.
too, you know. So that's pretty much why we put together our organization, and that's pretty much what we do. And it's actually a form of therapy for myself.
Right.
Because of what I've been through, no matter how well I may present, you know,
And you present.
I my I myself still suffer from, you know, a mental health disorder as a result. Sometimes doing this is the only thing that I can do positively, you know. And I've been rambling, so
No, you're fine. I think I actually got a knock at the door as well. Come in.
who's that? Who that? Who that? Who that? I wish I could see if there was any comments. Can't see.
So this is a good opportunity to uh say hello, steal the
Hi.
show.
Hello.
This is
Hello.
Taya. So this is a good break. Just want to shout out all of those who have logged in so far. So you said hey to Charla. She says hey Brooke. I'm trying to scroll up and my finger isn't. Okay, so Sha Simone and Tara Marshall say hello. Nikki Callier,
Hey.
hi Miss Nikki. Brittany Lugo, I'm guessing there's a relationship.
My sister Brittany, my cousin Tara. Yeah.
Awesome. Leona and Rich Guerra and Naomi Marie,
Yes. Yes.
Tracy
Oh my.
Porter. Yes, so
Hey.
have lots of folks on listening.
Uh-oh.
And
Jackson, open the door.
yeah, might as well. You know, let's make it a family affair.
No. We just had another visitor. You want to go on Facebook Live?
Say hi to Jackson.
Oh,
Say hi, Jackson.
Say hi. Oh, yeah. Show your true colors. Because they be seeing your photos. They don't know. They don't know.
Sin and Danny
You wanna
from
show your
Wakanda
PJs?
say hello.
Show your PJs. Show your PJs. What do you have?
I have a lion.
A lion?
I think a dinosaur.
A what?
A dog. A dwarf.
A dinosaur.
Dinosaur. What's that?
What's that?
Gator.
A gator?
What's
Okay.
that, mommy?
That's an
See, and folks are
alligator.
saying hi to you guys. Tara
Oh,
says
say
hi,
hi.
Tay and Jackson. See, you're famous now. See that?
Oh.
Hashtag mommy life, right?
I do the white boat.
He goes on a white boat.
I
Oh,
do
wow.
the white boat.
Okay, excuse me, it's mommy's interview. Get your
And
own.
I did the pool.
Excuse me, get your own interview.
I did that the pool.
He went to a pool.
Oh, wow. Was it fun?
I did pool.
Yes, a pool.
Was it a fun pool?
Was it fun?
And Woody, Patty, Woody, after, it won't do that.
Oh, he just said we did ring
Ash-
around the road.
Around the road. Mm-hmm.
Pocket full of
Woody,
ashes.
Ashes. Ashes. We all
Okay,
fall.
Okay, shh. That's the talk. Okay, can you be quiet? Okay, thank you.
You gonna be quiet for me too? Okay, awesome. Okay. All right. So you were saying, so your experience is how the Baby Resource Center was birthed, and my mom asked if she met you. I don't think she met you. She was in the car. She drove me to drop off the stuff. But first of all, thank you so much for sharing. Like, that speaks to the amount of strength and courage you have, because like you said, a lot of people, they don't know how to deal with it, or they put it in a box and they tuck it away. And you said they tuck it away for a time when they want to, you know, they're ready to deal with it. And sometimes it forces itself open, because
Yeah.
people don't realize that what they've experienced has been traumatic. They know that it doesn't feel good, but they don't know that it has actually traumatized them. And
Yes.
then they have all of these symptoms. It's like, oh, well, I'm not myself and I feel like I'm going crazy and I'm anxious, and they're not connecting the two.
Yeah.
On social media, I told the story of a client I had once, and she's like, I feel like I'm going crazy. People say I'm not myself. I don't want to leave the house. I'm not sleeping. And then
I
she
get the
nonchalantly
PJ.
said that she had
Mommy, I
experienced a
get
miscarriage. And that's no judgment to her. But some
Mhm.
people, because they're not informed, or they're just, in denial, they don't connect the two. And it's like, that's why, resources like the Baby Resource Center and, professionals who know a little something about trauma, it's important that we really get the word out, because there are so many people who are suffering in silence, and they don't have to, because there is support. So thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. He is hilarious. He's an entertainer like mommy.
I guess so. Jackson, hey, hey. Well, that's distracting.
So thank you very much. Now, you mentioned the word trauma a couple of times, because it's
Yes.
no secret that experiencing that kind of loss can
You want to
be
go back to
traumatic
grandma?
for a person. And we're talking about PTSD and trauma, but we didn't even touch the grief portion of it, and that could be like a
Yes.
completely separate episode. So loss, you have loss, and then you have traumatic loss. You want to wave to Jackson? Wave to Jackson. Traumatic loss is a completely different level. Now, did you notice that you were experiencing symptoms of PTSD, or like, did you study it? Did you like end up going to the doctor and seeking professional help? Like, how did that work out for you in the aftermath?
Yes. Well, I definitely knew that I would be experiencing grief, and
Right.
it was very difficult to kind of differentiate the difference between, grief
Hmm.
and other symptoms. So I really
Right.
didn't understand what was happening. Um, I was diagnosed with a mental health diagnosis from a teen, actually.
Mm.
So I did have a diagnosis of bipolar 2.
Mm.
However, um, I had been able to self manage for years.
Mhm.
Baby, wait. Really? Thank you. He's like, kids need to shut me up. What a man, right? So anyway, okay, Jackson, you're gonna have to go with grandmama.
No.
Okay, see?
Mm,
Okay, you wanna go with grandmama?
no.
Then I need you to sit down, and I need you to be quiet. Let mommy talk, okay? You gonna let mommy talk? And quiet and sit. Thank you.
Mommy Bible.
You wanna watch Incredibles? Grandmama, can Jackson watch Incredibles?
It's our second time.
Can he watch it third?
Me.
What was that?
Silly.
Gas.
Ooh,
Awesome.
Ooh,
Okay, go watch Incredibles. Hurry up, go watch Incredibles.
No.
You said you want to watch Incredibles. Okay, go watch Incredibles. I'll be right there, okay? Let me say bye-bye to my friend, okay? Okay? I'll say bye-bye to my friend. I'll be right there. Go watch it.
You
Go
come
sit
back,
down.
give me a snack.
Oh, she got snacks. Oh, she got snacks.
Snacks.
I'm coming, okay?
Works every
Hurry
time.
up.
Works every time.
You're a fatty like me. So I had been diagnosed with a mental health illness back when I was a teen. However, over my adult years, I believe that through music and other things, I was able to self-manage.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I really identified how much I was struggling over those years. But, I think I never really realized that some of the bright ideas and the all these different things that I used to do were actually symptoms of bipolar disorder. You know, I was just the life of the party, or, you know,
Right.
so super creative. Good job, Brooke. But, you know, in all actuality, I was probably having some mild, you know, mania episodes, and I didn't know it, you know.
Wow.
And for those who don't know, the mania episodes of bipolar are those highs that people with that disorder experience. So people do get a little bit hyperactive and you know, seem super productive, but you know, they might actually be having an episode. So
you know your stuff.
yeah. So after, and I had been well for years, I believe, you know. But after Kennedy, I think it just opened a whole nother can of worms, because I started going through things that I never experienced.
You have to turn
I
that
wasn't
off.
able.
Actually, you guys go. I'm sorry. I'm sure you know about super shapes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. You guys need to go. Mommy is working, and you know this. Go back in the bedroom, please. I'll leave the door open so you can have light. Go back. Peace out, yo. You might as well. Go, Taya. Taya had her 15 seconds. Come on, Yair.
Thank God for television.
And tablets. Taya. Oh, my goodness. Taya, come back. Mommy life. Say hello.
Hey. Hello.
This is Yair.
Hello.
Okay. They don't want to see your tablet. They want to see your handsome face.
My tablet say hi to you.
Oh, hi, tablet. Hi, Mr. Tablet.
Okay, guys. You know Mommy is working, so you have to go back and play. All right? Let me turn this back on for you. All right? That doesn't happen often. Okay. Now, both of you hold hands and go back, okay? What'd you say, Tay?
That works.
Yours, I don't know. Yours isn't connecting to the Wi-Fi, so Yair will share with you, okay?
But she wasn't even on my bed.
Okay, well, share. Okay? Peace out. All right, go.
Figured I'd do something while I wait.
The tablet will help you see, okay? Get in the bed.
I wish I could see comments.
Taya, why are you crying?
See, that's what I thought was going to happen to me.
Okay, Taya, come here. Come. Quickly. Yair, you go to bed. Taya, you come.
I thought that was going to happen to me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
So you said once you lost Kennedy, you said the symptoms
everything was different. Yeah, everything was completely different. So I think it just opened a whole nother can of worms, because you know, wasn't able to get out the house. I mean, I was able to get out the house on some occasions. I had a ton of support, and support that people probably don't even realize. Support in, you know, getting me dressed, you know, picking out clothes for me, doing my hair, and, you know, just for a photo for the gram, so I looked like I was doing well, you know. But with PTSD, you know, people normally associate post-traumatic stress disorder with veterans, people in the military. Yes. You know, I don't think people realize that you can have post-traumatic stress disorder from any traumatizing event.
Absolutely.
And even when I say any traumatizing event, it's simply about what's traumatizing to you. So people don't realize that, you know, you can have it from a car crash, you know. And the unfortunate thing about our society is that, you know, we tend to compare a lot, you know. So we'll be like, oh, I had a car accident. I had a car accident, and you know, I'm fine. Like, oh yeah, you know, it was scary or this and the third, but it doesn't mean that, you know, I can't drive anymore. But you know, you don't belittle somebody else's situation. You know, if whatever happened to them put them in a position where they are no longer able to do certain things or they struggle with it, you know, oh man. There I go. Sorry.
No problem.
Lost me for a second. Okay, yeah. So, you know, and they struggle with it, you know, be a good friend, be a good support, and help them find help if you can't help them, you know.
Right. Right.
So with post-traumatic stress disorder, there's a lot of different things that happen. A lot of times people relive the moment over and over again.
One of the main
Flashbacks.
symptoms. Yeah.
Yeah, flashbacks can happen. Other symptoms are nightmares. You know, and those are things you can't control. You know,
Right.
so a lot of times people think that, you know, they want to offer all these wonderful ideas of what can happen, but you know, with these type of issues, you cannot control the thoughts that pop into your mind. You can't control the things that, you know, you think about. You can work on ways to control your actions after it happens, but you can't control the things that happen in your mind. You know, you can work, you know, so I'll say that again for the people in the back. You can't control what pops into people's minds. You can try to find ways to help control the actions thereafter. You know, and I think that right there is a key component when it comes to mental health. So when people think that mental health illnesses are not real diseases, those are the type of things I think we face with society, that it's not a real disease. And people think that because they think that you can control something about it. But if it's a mental health illness, if it's severe enough to be an illness, now people may experience certain symptoms of a mental illness, but if it's not severe, then it's not a mental illness. If it doesn't impact or impair your life in a negative way or in a constricting way, then it's not the illness. You know, and I
it's
think
like
that's
anxiety.
Yeah.
Like everybody is anxious at some point, but if it's not impairing your functioning, then it's not a clinical matter. It's just, okay, you're normal and you are experiencing anxiety. Right. Absolutely.
I think that is exactly where, you know, our society confuses everything, because they don't understand the line. They don't understand the line. So since there are things, depression and anxiety, that you can see in a person that functions normally, you know, they don't understand that you can't compare the two. And that's what happens. You compare somebody functioning well with somebody that is impacted severely. And you're saying like, well, this person is depressed. They have depression, but look, you can't compare the two. You can't compare
because everyone's experience is different. And like you said, that's so important, is that what's traumatic for me might not be traumatic for you. And it doesn't mean that you're not as strong, or, you don't have the resources, but everyone, based on their experience, has a different degree of resilience. And that's not something that you can buy at Walmart. It depends on your upbringing, the emotional environment that you were brought up in. So that's so important. And as the doctor, y'all, Brooke knows what she's talking about. And I think it's so important that you are Yair, close the door. We don't want to hear that.
I didn't hear
in the bathroom.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
Oh boy. But it's so important that folks hear from someone who's actually living it, because it's one thing to hear, the doctors say it, because people also think that, because we're mental health professionals, that we don't go through anything. But, to hear it from someone who studied it is very different from hearing it from someone who's living it. So I really applaud you, and I thank you for being candid about your experiences, because there are people who have not been diagnosed. but they're
Yes.
hearing you speak and they're just like, wow, like I'm going through that and I never put two and two together. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you might be encouraging someone else to, you know, seek
Amen.
help, you know,
Yeah.
after their marriage or after their loss or even loss of a job. Like people say,
Yeah.
oh, you know, people lose jobs every day. But again, what's traumatic? He's singing Bruno Mars.
Oh, I didn't even hear
You
it.
know, um, Yair, you're being disruptive. Stop, take your foot
Yeah.
down. You know, you might be encouraging other people. I was talking about loss of a job. What's
Yeah.
traumatic for me might not be traumatic for you, and vice versa. The example
Exactly.
that I always give my students and even clients, and I use something that's, yes, it was tragic, but it's something that so many people can relate to. September 11th. If you line up
Mm-hmm.
10 people who have seen the repeated images on the news or whatever, who have been downtown Manhattan, all 10 of them are not going to be diagnosed with PTSD. They might
Mm-hmm.
present with trauma symptoms, but if
Mm-hmm.
it's not impairing their functioning, then they don't have PTSD. If they don't have the symptoms of, you know, re-experiencing the traumatic event, they don't have PTSD. And that means that everyone isn't, even though they've experienced the same situation, that they're not perceiving it and processing it in the same way. So you hit
Mm-hmm.
some really, really, really important points. Just making noise and
I want to.
so
I want to
forth.
say. I want to say something in connection to that. Mentioning
Mm.
seeing images. I mean, dare I say that, you know,
Taya.
watching these media clips of stuff that happens in our community causes a level of post-traumatic stress disorder. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I'm not I am
Stop
I'm
taking
an advocate for all things. You know, I support good cops. I dislike bad cops. You
it.
know, I support um wonderful and amazing people of color, and I don't advocate for people of color that do dumb things. You know,
Right.
so, you know, I understand the balance between both, but, you know, dare I say, okay, you wanted to come back, okay, you gotta be quiet. Shh. Okay, but dare I say that even seeing these images of bad cops that have done things and not followed things the way that they should have caused a level of post-traumatic stress in us when we watch these things. And I know it may seem simple to some people, like, oh no, but I'm just watching a video. Well, no, because why do you experience certain symptoms when you see a police officer? You know, when you get pulled over, you know, why is there a certain level of anxiety that then
Right.
happens over you? And not normal anxiety, not just like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm going to be late now, or oh my gosh, I don't want to pay a ticket, or oh my gosh. But no, why are you feeling like you're about to die? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's
That's
not your
exactly
story. You know,
what
that's
trauma
not
is.
your, yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
not your story. That happened to somebody else. But in that moment, you might be able now to identify with what somebody else's major trauma is, because that's what it's
Right.
like. You know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
when that cop starts walking over to your window, you start replaying some videos you saw. You start reliving some things that other people went through that ended fatally. And not only do you relive it, but now you even place that on you. And now you have
Right.
this image of you possibly dying in this moment just for being pulled over. And as a
Absolutely.
result of that, it may
Mm-hmm.
cause you to act a certain way with this officer. You know what I mean?
Right.
And in that moment, you're experiencing a level of stress, traumatic stress. You know, now you might
Right.
not have the illness, but now you can understand, what about the people who deal with that daily?
Right.
What about the
Exactly.
people who deal with that on a regular basis? Because every little thing that happens then becomes that same type of trigger, because you don't know what's going to trigger everybody. You know, and that's an example of, you know, just trying to make a relation so somebody that doesn't deal with this can understand what somebody deals with this goes through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny, I was having a conversation with a friend, and he texted me. He was like, I think my mental health is being affected by everything that's happening in society, especially with regard to people of color and police brutality. And he's absolutely right. And it's the same thing. Even though you haven't experienced it yourself, it's vicarious trauma. You're traumatized by hearing the story of someone else's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens in a lot of different communities. Us as
Mm-hmm.
people of color, happens to us people who identify as Muslims, in the wake of September 11th and everything like that, they experience it. You have a lot of different categories of people who are experiencing vicarious trauma, post-traumatic stress, and don't even know it, and they haven't even gone through it. You know what I mean? So it's really important, and we're kind of coming full circle now, the issues of minority mental health. This is why we need to have these discussions, because it depends on who's delivering the information. And if you see someone who looks like you delivering the information, it might be sad, but it's true, you might be more receptive.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you are, not only speaking to your own experience, but you're sharing a wealth of knowledge about how it can affect other people and other, I mean, it's just awesome. Like, I haven't had to say much, because you know about it, because clearly you've read up on it, but you've also experienced it, and people like to hear from folks they can relate to. You know what I mean? And you've gone through a hi, honey. Want to wait
Not
again?
show and tell. Not show and tell. Yes.
So that's, you bring up a valid point about, police brutality and the issue of vicarious trauma. That's that's so important. And with regard to your situation, um, that's actually how we connected. And I said, we would get into that, because working with survivors of trauma, like I've been um, in the field, or studying psych since I was 17. And for those of you who don't know, you don't need to do the math. Amen. Praise God. But I've worked with a lot of folks who have experienced trauma. And when I saw your post, and I didn't see your post directly, I think somebody might have shared it or whatever. I was just like, everything in me. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know what the outcome could possibly be, or what she's even going through. So I just reached out, you know what I mean? And I think that's what you were speaking to, the whole, the support from Facebook. Some people think, oh, you don't have to share everything on Facebook, but you get a lot of support, in times when you really need it. Um, from a place like that. But I don't even know why I mentioned that. I was speaking about trauma symptoms and stuff. It's late, and I have somebody distracting me. But yeah, I completely lost my
Oh, well, I
lost
know
my
we didn't talk about Jackson. I know we didn't talk about why. Did we talk about why it's taboo in our?
No, we didn't.
No.
We didn't talk, and we we could go on for another hour about that, but I think that um there are a lot of reasons. Um and I'll just give my theories, and you can chime in.
Mhm.
As far as people of color and ethnic minorities, I think there are a number of reasons. One of them being, and you said, way back historically, we are looked at as strong people,
Mm.
by others, by ourselves. So because we're strong, we shouldn't need help.
Mhm.
We shouldn't need help. We shouldn't have to go to the man to talk about our issues. Another reason is, what goes on in the house stays in the house. So we
Mhm.
aren't encouraged to, seek outside help. Another reason is the spirituality aspect that you mentioned earlier. There's so much research about how people of color, we go to church. we go to church, we go to our pastor, we go to the temple, the mosque, we go there, and that's how we cope. So the whole mental health piece and mental health professionals, that's not something that we do. So those are, I think, my personal top 3 reasons of why, Tay, stop, baby. Why people of color don't seek mental health services for what they're going through. And it also could be just simply lack of knowledge.
Okay.
And that's why awareness is so important. We might not know what the symptoms are. We might not know, what to look for. So we just go on thinking, oh, so-and-so is a bad kid. So-and-so just has a nasty disposition, not realizing that that can be the direct effect of a traumatic situation, or, a symptom of some kind of mental illness. So so I went from top 3 to top 4, but I think those are, some of the reasons why we need a Minority Mental Health Month, and why it's such a taboo, because we're strong. We're supposed to be able to handle it, Tay, stop.
And even with the spiritual component, what's funny about that is, I think it challenges people's spirituality. I think it challenges their spirituality, because to have some sort of ailment that looks like that it cannot be cured, I think will give the impression either that your God has failed, or that you don't believe enough. That
Right.
you as a believer are not prayerful enough. You don't believe enough, which I believe both to be false. There's just there's an example that I like to use, a parable of sorts, if you may. I like to give an example of, like, let's say 3 people with cancer. These 3 people are hold on one second. I want to give my example, okay?
Hi, boy.
Hello? You want to go back with grandmama? Okay, shh. Let me say this, okay?
No, hi, boy.
There's not a little boy, it's a little girl. Yes. Okay? So let's say there are 3 people with cancer, and their faith in Christ is equally the same. They pray just as hard. They've sought deliverance just as hard. And in the same 3 situations, there are 3 different outcomes. One person goes back to the doctor, and they are miraculously healed and delivered. There's no sign of the cancer. They can go on and move on with their life. The second person has to, unfortunately, deal with all the struggles that come with chemo. And they too end up beating the cancer, and they continue on with their life. And the last person dies. Now, was one's faith less than the other? Did one pray less than the other? Did one believe in Jesus less than the other? Like, are we going to say that the person who died, oh, well, they didn't believe for their deliverance? Like, no. You know, things happen. Things happen according to God's will, according to His purpose, for whatever reason that may be. Does it mean that does it mean that things will be pleasant and happy? No. My daughter died. You don't think that I prayed my whole thank you. Oh, honey. You don't think that I prayed, on the hospital bed every night? I was in labor for 2 days. I prayed every second of like, Colin and I had scriptures beyond scriptures. We had churches praying, and God still said no. Still said no. Does it mean that I'm happy about that choice? No. I'm not happy. Do I see the purpose in it? Yes. Do I see how many lives have been affected afterwards? Yes. Do I think that's great? Yes. Am I happy about that? No. If I had a choice, no.
Right.
If it was up to me, no. You know, but
Right.
God saw something different. You know,
Right.
obviously he knew that he can trust me to still lean on him through it,
Right.
to still seek him through it.
Yeah.
You know, that I would believe that he would still carry me through it, which he is, because if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for him,
you want to go back to the bedroom? Okay.
Yes, the mental illness might have won. But thank you, Jesus. No, both. I said thank you, Jesus. Anyway, so, in that aspect, I say the same thing about mental health, and I say this to the church community. It's not a lack of faith if somebody needs additional help. Do I think you should still seek God? Do I think you should still believe for a full deliverance? Yes. But if it doesn't happen, that way, it doesn't mean that it didn't allow this path to work out a different way. And in that case, if somebody still needs help, then guess what? Seek a prayer and a pill. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Prayer and a pill. My old pastor said that, actually. A prayer and a pill. And but we do need to be careful. Of course, we do need good doctors out there. We do need people that care more than just writing a case note and whatever they need to file for their insurance. Because medication is dangerous. A medical practice is a practice. So yes, do your research the way you would do anything else. Seek reviews from people who have used this doctor before and look at those reviews. Find somebody who has been working with a doctor that would send a referral and say, hey, you know what? I was working with this one and I think, they work well. If therapy alone, and even understand, like you said, awareness, people don't understand the levels to this. There's a difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist,
Yes.
The psychologist, works on the talk therapy and really, I feel like they do the tough work. They do that every day, daily work and getting you through everything, where the psychiatrist is the one that is able to prescribe the medication. You don't see them that often. You don't talk to them that long, most likely, unless you develop some type of relationship with them. So it's important to even understand, if medication is offered, find out about the medication, and if need be, start on baby doses.
Right.
Don't let them give you a big dose first. Start on baby doses, because as you start to take it, it starts to get into your system. You can start to see how you feel, how it works. And if you experience any negative symptoms, then no, switch to something else. Be an advocate. Speak up for yourself. Because it's easier. It's more difficult to try to bring somebody down off of a bad medication dose. And that's the horror story.
And it can have long-lasting effects. It can have long-lasting effects.
And those are the horror stories that actually cause trauma to people, that cause them not to want to try it. You hear the traumatic stories of somebody that took medication that was too strong for them or wrong for them, and because of that, they are experiencing negative side effects of it. They look like a zombie. They're drooling or whatever, numb mouth, and all these other things. And you hear, and those stories get spread like wildfire, instead of the stories of people who have had positive experiences with medication. Because if you're taking medications for psychological reasons, you don't want people to know that, because that means you're crazy. But then now other people don't know that they can get help. I sit here
Right.
today and talk to you and talk to whoever's watching and who may be watching afterwards because of good medication
Mm.
and prayer. And prayer,
Absolutely.
my
Prayer
prayer
and
and my
felt. I really
pill.
like that. But it's so true. And the example, I was actually on a panel and it just came to me, and I thank God for it, because it makes so much sense to me. And it's funny, a person, actually an ex of mine who I'm actually uh pretty cool with now. He said, "Isn't it contradictory that you are studying to be a psychologist, but you're also a preacher? Like you're a believer. Like
Absolutely.
how does that work?" And the when I was on the panel, the thing that came to me was Psalm 24. Psalm
Mm-hmm.
24 and 1. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the earth and they that dwell therein. Mental health professionals are part of the they that dwell therein. So
Amen.
God created us, He equipped us to help people. So He knew that there were going to be things like mental illnesses, there are going to be struggles like PTSD and trauma. So what did He do? He equipped us with prayer, He equipped us with the word and scriptures on healing and deliverance, but He also equipped mental health professionals to help people, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, people often forget that we have a lot of natural um, resources and solutions, but where did those natural solutions come from?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
sometimes sometimes your deliverance is going to come through a pill. Sometimes the deliverance is
Mm-hmm.
going to come through talk therapy. And sometimes the deliverance is going to happen at the altar or happen at, the revival or whatever. But people need
Mm-hmm.
to be aware of,
Mm-hmm.
aware that it's not always going to be what society or what people or what church folk think it should be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So bring up some very valid points. She thinks it's time to
Yeah.
play.
And
She's going to
and
her
I
toys.
would and I would encourage anybody listening to this that goes through anything um to start keeping track. You know,
Mm,
awareness is very important, and I mean extremely important. You can't do anything. A problem, you can only solve a problem if you know it's a problem. So
absolutely.
as
Hmm.
you go through things,
Hey,
it's
Tay.
good to take note of what's going on, you know? So as you
Right.
experience certain things, take note of what's going on. Take note of what you're experiencing. Take note of
Tay.
things
Yeah,
that could
yeah.
possibly be symptoms, you know?
Right.
Pray, seek your deliverance, and believe in your deliverance. You know, be that person that just needed to hold on to the hem of Jesus. Like, just be that person, you know. And if for some reason God doesn't have your deliverance come in that form, and you're
Mhm.
still experiencing these things, the devil is a liar. You better move your hand off my mouth. Thank you. And you're still experiencing these things, then you try the next step. Then that's when you try the talk therapy or the therapist and stuff like that. And then you keep on keeping track of what's going on. How do you feel then? Are you still experiencing symptoms? Is this particular person
Right.
helpful to you? They may not be the right therapist,
Mhm.
you know? So then you keep
Absolutely.
praying, you keep seeking your
Hmm.
deliverance, you keep reaching for the hem of
Right.
Jesus, you know, and things
Hmm.
still don't change.
And
Maybe
asking
try
him
a
to
different,
reveal to
try
you someone
exactly,
who's
try a
going
different
to
doctor,
connect with
you
you.
know?
Hmm.
Go through it again.
Yep.
How are things going with this doctor? Keep praying. Keep seeking that deliverance. Keep making a note of what may appear to be symptoms. If things still don't change, you know, that's when you
Right.
take it to another level. What other forms of therapy? I mean, there's a lot of different methods of treatment that you can try before you even get to medication. You know,
Absolutely.
so
Hmm.
it's just about awareness of knowing to take those steps and take those levels and you know, because it's very possible. I like to think that I look very normal, but I suffer from a mental illness.
Hmm.
I am on social security disability because of
Hmm.
my mental illness. That should speak to the severity of the things
Right.
that I go through. You know, if people don't understand what that is, you know, a judge and doctors and stuff have to evaluate your medical records to see if they deem that these things are that bad. So I sit before you, and if somebody just tuned in for this moment, you're not going to say, oh, she's disabled. You know, that's the stigma that we deal with, because I could sit here right here with my pretty little head wrap on, my pearls popping. You think that nothing is wrong with me, but I struggle. I'm the face of somebody who struggles. I'm the face of the person, the everyday person that goes through, you know, a mental health issue. And I'm the same person that if I didn't have treatment, I could crack and something unfortunate could happen to myself or to others. You know, and that's why it's very important to be aware of what's going on with yourself, to be aware of things that you see happening with somebody going, you know, somebody you love or a friend. It's important to have these conversations in your community. It's important to have these conversations in your church. It's important to have these conversations at school. You know, it's important, because if you don't get this together, nothing else will fall in place.
Absolutely. You said a mouthful, Brooke, and we're going to wrap up because I see that Jackson is getting antsy.
He's delirious.
Okay. So is Tanya. Just want to say hello to those who have logged in since we first gave our shout outs. Hey, Evangelist Terry, thank you so much for tuning in. Rachel, hey boo, and Rich and Tracy are commenting, and Tanisha, thank you so much. Michelle Bassett says thank you, and so many, and Kendra logged on, thank you so much, and all of those folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to wrap up so that we can get these little people to bed. But again, I want to thank you for sharing your story. You are extremely strong, and you're extremely courageous, and you've probably heard that before, but it's true.
Don't feel it.
It's true, and people will be. and thank you for tuning in, April and Toya. It's really, really, really important that you share your story, because even though it might hurt, it's helping other people, and I really believe that sharing helps us to heal. And you know, as we're both believers, the word says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And you shared your testimony, and you have touched people. You're going to continue to touch people, because this is going to be, you know, out there for the internet to see. But I truly thank you. So I just wanted to end with you sharing a few words of wisdom, as though you haven't already, but a few words of wisdom, and also letting us know where people can find you on social media and how they can support the Baby Resource Center. You still there? Oh, did we lose you, sis? Oh, we must have, her phone might have died. So that is where we will end. Thank you everyone for tuning in. There were so many people who logged in. I really appreciate you. I thank you so much. This is wrapping up our National Minority Mental Health Month series. I really think that this series was awesome. I learned a lot from the people I've interviewed, and I hope that all of you have learned a lot as well. So thank you so much for tuning in to Late Night Latte with Dr. Té. Please tune in next week. We are going to be interviewing some more folks, and we're going to, Taya, do not touch my smoothie because it's going to make a mess. You missed that part. That's at the beginning. I'm sorry for those of you who can't see, my toddler is trying to get to my green smoothie, which I spilled on myself earlier in the show. But thank you so much. Please tune in if you're not already a follower of Dr. Té. Please follow me on social media on Instagram and Facebook as well as Twitter. My handle is that's Dr. Té, TSDRTE. That's Dr. Té. And if any of you have any questions about the topics that we discussed tonight, PTSD, trauma, and even loss, we talked about grief a little bit this evening, feel free to email me. It's that's Dr. Té at gmail.com. And also, if you identify with some of the symptoms that were discussed tonight, you can feel free to email me or inbox me, DM me, and I can definitely assist you with a referral in your area. You see Kendra. She sees her aunt, guys. So make sure you follow me, contact me if you need anything, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Late Night Latte with Dr. Té. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a great evening. Say bye, Taya. Oh, wait, they can't see you. Come, get closer. Hey, okay, that's Taya saying bye. Have a good evening, everyone.